the Airport Consultative Forum. I've just got to read out the prepared notes of the meeting script. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If a council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try and re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken using the raise your hand function and the result announced by the Democratic Services Officer. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be re-invited to join the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the forum who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using their raise your hand function, which is being monitored by the Vice Chair. Any members not on the forum or unable to use the raise your hand function who wish to ask a question should indicate by typing an X in the chat box. Before we start today's business, I will ask the Democratic Officer to ask the committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division organisation that they represent.
Thank you, Chairman. Thelma Sorensen.
Yes, I represent the Cornwall Business Partnership.
Thank you. Steve Murdoch.
Yes, I represent Cornwall Air Ambulance.
Jill Moore. You're on mute, Jill.
Yes, Newquay Chamber of Commerce and Tourism.
Thank you. Nick Weston.
Yeah, morning everybody. Nick Weston, representing Western Aviation.
Owen Crosby.
Good morning, representing RAF St Morgan.
Councillor Fitter.
Good morning, Colin and St Morgan.
Councillor Kenny.
Good morning, Joanna Kenny, Newquay Pentire, Cornwall Council.
Suzanne Featherstone.
Suzanne Featherstone, Colwyn Parish Council.
Councillor Rushworth.
Stephen Rushworth, County Councillor for St Izzy and St Judy District.
Councillor Wood.
John Wood, Cornwall Councillor for the Roach Division.
Zara Dimicum.
Yep, Newquay Pilot Training.
Malcolm Bell.
Representing Visit Cornwall.
Councillor Wills.
Councillor Wills representing St Columbia Major Town Council and also the Cornwall Councillor for the St Columbia Major Electoral Division.
And Councillor Monk.
Councillor Oliver Monk representing Newquay Traralgon.
We also have Jeff Brown, portfolio holder. Could you just state your name and division, please?
Yeah, good morning. Jeff Brown, represent Newquay Central. I'm Cabinet Member for Transport.
We also have Kevin Towell, who is a Newquay member. Can you please confirm? Councillor Towell?
Yep. Yep, Kevin Towell, representing Newquay Treferris.
And we also have Avie Hubbard in attendance from RAF St Morgan, I believe. Can you just confirm, please?
Yeah, good morning. Avie Hubbard representing RAF St Morgan.
Thank you. We also have the following officers in attendance. We have Anna Druce, Community Network Manager, Simon Mansell from the Corporate Governance team, Matthew Vowles from the Cornwall Development Company, Miles Carden, the Spaceport Director, Richard Thomason, the Airport Operations Manager, Pete Downs, the Airport Director, Graham Scrimgeour from the airport, and I am Rowena Brebner, Democratic Officer.
That's great, Rowena. Do we have any apologies?
We do. We have apologies from Margaret North, Gwen Jennings and Ian McElworth.
That's great. And can we have any declarations of interest? As and when?
None being shown at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, on to item number 3. That's public questions. I believe we have a public question. Would someone wanted to ask a question?
We do, Chairman.
Good morning. My name's Graham Smith. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. My question is, has the forum considered recommending an independent aeronautical engineering report on the prospects for a successful horizontal launch satellite system which relies on RP1 and LOX fuel? And does the forum have any opinion as to why no horizontal launch has ever previously reached orbit using this 75-year-old technology?
Thank you very much for your question, Graham. I've got a prepared response by the forum to your question, which I will now read out. The forum will need to consider if the study is necessary to consider the fuel used at spaceports. It may impact on the airport or passengers using the surfaces the airport provides. The use of RP1 rocket propellant, a high-grade kerosene similar to jet aircraft fuel, is not considered novel and will be seen by industry as a common propellant choice. Rockets such as Rocket Lab's Electron, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket use this mix, as did the first stage of Saturn V. Considerable due diligence has been undertaken, which includes independent advice on technology. Horizontal satellite launch is a proven technology, and what the market is trying to do at the moment is to make it cheaper in order to meet the demand that exists today to deploy satellites for the purposes of communications, Earth observation and environmental science. Northrop Grumman Orbital ATK, a major US-based aerospace and space company, have proved the technology. Northrop Grumman have carried out over 44 successful commercial horizontal launches, 95, which equates to 95 satellites deployed to orbit with their Pegasus system. Low in number compared to over 5,000 vertical launches through history, but it is proven. Virgin Orbit have redesigned the concept to seek lower cost and increase reliability. On Wednesday this week, the UK Space Agency announced that the UK and US governments have signed a new technology safeguarding agreement, which now allows US companies, including Virgin Orbit, to deploy their technology to the UK and Spaceport Cornwall.
Thank you. May I ask a very brief follow-up question?
Certainly.
You made reference to Northrop Grumman's Pegasus rocket. Are you aware that that system relies on a solid fuel propulsion system, whereas RP1 and LOX is liquid?
That's a very good technical question. If there's anybody who would like to jump in and answer that, that would be fine. If not, can I suggest that I get someone appropriate to email you and give you, or speak to you after and give you an appropriate response?
That's great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no further public questions.
That's correct. No further questions, Chairman.
That's fine. So if we go to the minutes of the meeting held on 17th of December 2019, you've all had a copy of those minutes. Is everybody happy with those minutes?
Can someone formally propose and second, please, Chairman?
I'm happy to propose the minutes be accepted, Mr. Chairman, although I do have a couple of hands raised, but as Vice Chair, I'm happy to propose.
Okay.
Brown has a hand raised and so does Councillor Kenny, and I'm taking it that they are raising their hands to propose and to second, but we may like to ask or bring them in to ask them.
That's right. Seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. So proposed by Councillor Wills, seconded by Councillor Kenny.
That's fantastic. So all in favour, can you raise your hands on the...
Chairman, we're going to do a roll call vote. I think it's easier with not everyone. So if I call, there are some votes, those that I call their name will be the voting members. So if they could indicate whether they are for, against or abstain, and I'll go through the list. First of all, Steve Murdoch. Can you confirm if you're for or against the minutes, please?
Yes, for.
Thelma Sorensen.
Yes.
Jill Moore.
Yes.
Nick Weston.
Yes.
Owen Crosby.
Yes, 4.
Councillor Fitter. Councillor Fitter, are you in support or not of the minutes, please?
Yes, support.
4. Thank you. Councillor Kenny. Oh, obviously, well, I'm assuming you are Councillor Kenny, but can you just...
4, yes,
Yeah.
got you mixed up.
Suzanne Featherstone. Suzanne.
4.
Councillor Rushworth.
Abstaining because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Councillor Wood.
Abstain, non-attendance.
Okay. Zara Dinnicum.
Abstain, non-attendance.
Malcolm Bell.
Abstain, non-attendance.
Councillor Wills.
4.
And Councillor Monk.
4.
And those, and well, actually, that's everyone that has actually given their viewpoint, so I can confirm that the minutes have been confirmed, Chairman. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. So moving on to item number 6, which is an invitation to join the UK Airport Consultative Committees Liaison Group. I take it you've all had a chance to have a read through this. I take it by the deathly silence that you have.
No indications to speak, Mr. Chairman, from members of the forum at the moment. Although a question is, why have we not been members of this before?
Chairman, can I just come in quickly? With the next item on the agenda was actually the Constitution Review, item 5, pages 7 to 19 of the report, and Simon Mansell is here to answer any questions for that item.
Sorry, I've missed that out. So we can go straight back to item number 5, and if Simon wants to come in on that.
Chairman, there are no proposed changes for the Constitution, but I don't know if Simon has any comments he wants to make.
If not, then I suggest we propose the Constitution as laid down.
Sorry, Chair, you may not be able to see, but Simon was there waiting. I don't know if Simon
no, I
wants to
can't
speak.
Sorry, Simon, I haven't got the feature to see who's waiting.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I wanted to say was that this is just the annual review of the Constitution. Given the next item on the agenda, it may be that we have to review the Constitution later in the year, but I would take it as read at this time.
That's fine. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, Councillor Brown has indicated he wishes to speak.
You want to bring Jeff in?
That was only to second the last meeting. Apologies.
Sorry. Steve Murdoch has also got his hand raised.
Steve?
Yes, the Constitution, the membership list, I think, is somewhat out of date, given it includes Flybe and Augusta Westland, who are obviously no longer airport operators.
Okay, that's fine. Do we want to have a look at updating this list, Rowena?
We can, Chairman. We can do a review of the membership featured at the end, yes.
Okay, so I take it we should still go ahead and propose and second the actual Constitution with a view to amending the actual membership at a later date or at the end of the meeting.
Confirmed. I would suggest that, Chairman, yeah.
Okay, so do I have a proposer for the Constitution?
I'm happy to propose as Vice Chair, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a seconder out there?
Councillor Kenny has indicated. Councillor Kenny has indicated, I believe, that she is happy to.
That's right.
That's fine. So do you want to go round again with a vote?
I will, Chairman, yes. Okay, Steve Murdoch.
Yes, agreed.
Thelma Sorensen.
Agreed.
Jill Moore.
Agreed.
Nick Weston.
Agreed.
Owen Crosby.
Agreed.
Councillor Fitter.
Agreed.
Councillor Kenny.
Agreed.
Suzanne Featherstone.
Agreed.
Councillor Rushworth.
Agreed.
Councillor Wood.
Agreed.
Zara Dinnicum.
Agreed.
Malcolm Bell.
Agreed.
Councillor Wills.
Agreed.
And Councillor Monk.
Agreed.
Okay, that was unanimously agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we go straight on to item number 6 in the right order this time, if we go to page 20 and 25, this is an invitation to join the Airport Consultative Committee's liaison group. And I think Councillor Wills had a comment to make on that before we went back to the previous item agenda that I missed. So Paul, do you want to come back?
Yeah, my question was quite simple. Why have we never been a member of this before?
I wasn't aware this has existed, to be honest with you.
Perhaps that could be the answer, but Joanna Kenny has indicated she wishes to speak, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine. Joanna?
Muted. I've pressed something else. Right. Okay. What does it cost and what's the advantage of it?
I believe the cost is about £345 a year. Rowena might be able to correct me if that's wrong.
I think that's correct. I think Simon Mansell wants to come in there.
He has, yes. Mr. Mansell's indicated.
Yeah, with regards to the reason we've not been the members before, the membership relies on being over 600,000 passengers a year. It was something that Al and I have discussed in the past before he left about actually applying for a membership, but now we've been invited. And it's a regional significance. In the past, it wasn't felt that Newquay was, but now it's grown in importance. And in terms of the cost, it is just over £300,000. Sorry, it's just over £300 a year, not 300,000. I apologise, Freudian slip.
I'm so glad I asked.
Thank you. Councillor Brown has indicated, Chairman.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I know we haven't quite reached the 600,000 passengers limit yet, but we've been invited to join. I think that's just recognition nationally of the importance of Newquay as a regional airport, and I think it would be really good if we were part of that.
I mean, just personally, I echo those thoughts, Jeff, as well. I think it would be a great thing to join for relatively small beer of £345.
Councillor
So I'll be for Jeff. John?
Yes, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I can.
Yes, just to say that I totally endorse joining this prestigious group of people. It'd be the benefit of Newquay, Cornwall Airport, and it would be certainly the benefit of the people managing the airport to be involved in it. So I totally endorse it. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask members, please, if you have spoken once you have spoken, if you could lower your hands once you've spoken, because otherwise it's difficult for me to know if you want to come back in again or if you have a supplementary. I'm assuming that Councillor Kenny has a supplementary, but Councillor Wood is indicated to speak next, Mr. Chairman.
I can see no reason why we shouldn't join. I'm quite happy to propose the recommendations on page 20. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, John.
And I'm happy to second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder that we join the Airport Consultative Liaison Group. Do you want to go around again, Rowena?
Yeah, can I just confirm with Simon Mansell that you don't want to come back in again? Your hand is still raised before we go to the vote.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, no problem. Okay, I'll take the vote then. If you could indicate whether you are in support of the proposal. Steve Murdoch?
Yes, in favour.
Thelma Sorensen?
Very much in favour.
Jill Moore?
Support, yes.
Nick Weston?
Yes, support it.
Owen Crosby?
Yes, support.
Councillor Fitter?
Support.
Councillor Kenny?
Support.
Suzanne Featherstone?
In favour.
Rushworth? Councillor Rushworth?
Support.
Councillor Wood?
Support.
Zara Dinnicum?
Support.
Malcolm Bell?
Support.
Councillor Wills?
Support.
And Councillor Monk?
Support.
Thank you. I can confirm that was a unanimous vote in support of the motion. Thank you.
That's great. So next item on the agenda is the business update report, which Richard Thomason is going to give to us. I think he may want to blend the two together. He'll talk about that to start with, because a lot of the update report was just as COVID happened, and obviously there's a lot to talk about since COVID happened. So you may wish to join those together. Can we please let him do his report? Normally we sort of interrupt him a bit and have a bit of a to and fro conversation. Can we please leave the questions right till the end, please? Richard.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Yeah, just to kind of set the context. So I'll be starting off really with just to set the landscape really from when Al Titcherton departed Newquay back in February. So I held the interim managing director role from February to May, and obviously throughout that period I've had to probably deal with two incidents that we never thought we would do in the airport's history. Firstly, the administration of Flybe, and then closely followed by COVID-19, which has had a significant impact on our business. So the proposal, Mr. Chair, is that I will set the scene in terms of the planning and what we've been doing in that period in response to both Flybe and COVID-19. And then I will then hand over to the new managing director, Pete Downs, who's on the call, who's only been in post 18 days. So please go easy on him. And then I will then come back, Mr. Chair, and then just talk about some of those measures we're doing in response to reopening the terminal from early July. And that's based around these COVID 10 steps to safety plan that we've been developing. So if everyone's happy with that, then I will then just proceed with just setting some background detail.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy with that. Unless there's any objections, I suggest that you continue.
Great, thank you. So just in terms of context, so from February to through March, we were really planning for the busiest year the airport would have experienced. So in terms of context, our planning phase was for 500,000 passengers with 2 based Flybe aircraft, one primarily serving the London PSO service, and then the other operating that day return to Manchester and introducing Amsterdam. So we were really going to be in the ascendancy in a reflection of where we've come from in terms of passenger growth and connectivity. And then in a very close space of time from the 5th of March, Flybe going into administration, closely followed by COVID, the landscape has completely changed for our sector. And we've had to obviously take some immediate measures based on the UK government restrictions, which meant that the terminal operation was completely closed on the 25th of March. And we were very clear that it was very important that we did keep the aerodrome open in support of helicopter operations, military, business traffic, search and rescue, and our colleagues at Cornwall Air Ambulance. So that has remained the case from when the terminal closed and is the same as of today. So the aerodrome has remained open, but the terminal has been closed. It's a reflection of the restrictions and also the air travel position, where demand has slumped by 99%, obviously during the government restrictions. So that's where we've kind of were and where we've come from. What that allowed us to do in terms of the terminal closure and the restriction of aerodrome hours is to maximise the government job retention scheme, where we have had approximately 70% of the workforce on furlough. And what we have then been doing from a regulatory perspective is rotating those key areas of air traffic and rescue and firefighting so that our employees remain current. So when we are able to open the doors in July and go back to that 7-day a week operation, we are ready and good to go. So as I say, we've been taking stock of exactly where we are. I will talk about what we're doing in terms of preparing the terminal when we are due to reopen in July. And at this point, I'll hand over to Pete Downs, the Managing Director, who will just give you a position of where we are in terms of business and our likely flight activity for when we reopen the doors planned in July.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
As Richard has set the scene there, we are obviously facing into a very, very different environment as far as the future plans, both operationally and commercially, on the Cornwall Airport Limited side over the coming months. At the moment, in terms of the outlook for our airlines, I am pleased to say that we have had some success in the last week to 10 days in terms of our efforts to attract some new routes and some airlines. Some of you may have seen in the news locally that Eastern Airways, who are one of the the very small number of remaining regional carriers in the UK who are planning to get some flights moving in terms of key domestic links around the UK over the weeks of July. We have reached an agreement with them to launch services to Teesside International Airport and to Leeds Bradford. Leeds was one of the former Flybe routes, as you will know. They will be on much smaller aircraft than the Flybe aircraft, less than half of the passenger capacity. And they will be relatively infrequent services. Teesside will begin at 2 per week, increasing to 3. Leeds a little bit more frequently at once per day on weekdays. That is welcome, but of course it is a very small volume in the context of what has been lost. In terms of the projected restart during July, this is very much, I should say, a moving feast as far as airlines trying to plan for the current state of travel restrictions and try to commercially forecast forward what they think the landscape will look like during July. And obviously they've been quite limited in terms of the forward visibility of changes for them to make alterations to their schedule and respond in order to capitalise on any passenger demand that may materialise. But as we understand it at the current time, the first airline to return will be Ryanair. Now they will operate 3 flights per week instead of the previously planned 4. We will also have British Airways, who have flights on sale from mid-July. That will initially only be planned to be 2 flights per week, which is less than the previous 5 that they had planned over the summer. We're working with them on operational integration of their systems and training for staff at the airport. And then following on from that, we will expect to see, in terms of the current schedules, Eurowings returning on the Dusseldorf route at a schedule of 1 flight per week, and Aer Lingus also returning on the Dublin route in August with 3 flights per week instead of 4. Blue Islands, in terms of the Jersey and Guernsey services, is unknown at this stage. They are still evaluating their plans. And we do know that the previously scheduled services, the SAS service, the Scandinavian Airlines service to Copenhagen, and the Loganair domestic routes to Newcastle, Edinburgh and Aberdeen, have effectively been postponed for this year and rolled forward to next year. So despite the good news around the Eastern flights, the balance of what is in and out of the schedule clearly leaves us with far less traffic than we had prior to the Flybe administration, and actually quite significantly less traffic than we had in the immediate aftermath, where replacement routes had been sought in that brief period from early March when the Flybe administration took place and the implementation of lockdown during the coronavirus pandemic. We have been working as a team over recent weeks. I'd obviously like to thank Richard and the team who've been working extremely hard during the closure of the terminal to reduce cost within the business by effectively the termination of some of the seasonal ramp up in recruitment that was underway. Obviously, now that we're not planning on seeing that demand, we took some fairly quick steps to cut costs in that area, to maximise use of the coronavirus job retention scheme for staff principally engaged in passenger terminal operations, whilst the staff groups within services that cater for the wider aerodrome operating environments such as air traffic and fire were obviously more present on the site in terms of more of a business as usual position for them. We've been working closely with Corserve, our shareholder, and the council in terms of securing a short-term funding position to cover the significant financial deficit that Cornwall Airport Limited faces due to the collapse of revenue streams in the short term. And part of that process, I'm sure some of you will have seen from yesterday afternoon, the announcement of the proposed restructure that we notified our teams at the airport of yesterday. And we will begin that consultation process tomorrow. And that is anticipated at the current time to result in 36 redundancies across principally the passenger terminal operation, that is check-in staff, security staff, airside staff, and the cafe and retail operation that we also have in-house within the airport team. That has obviously had some further media coverage yesterday and this morning, and we expect that will continue. We're working extremely hard to support affected staff, to look at redeployment opportunities through the wider CoreServe group. It is an advantage that is available to us that is not available to many airports who are going through this process up and down the UK. That some parts of the CoreServe business obviously have seen an increase in resource requirement during the coronavirus pandemic, and we'll be doing everything possible to redeploy affected staff in other areas of the business and to support them with the training that will be required for that. And also considering any applications for voluntary redundancy, so that we try to keep the effectively the forced redundancies to an absolute minimum. We managed to bring that number of 36 down from what would have been a potential 70 had the actions that have been taken by the interim management team over recent months to reduce the cost base of the business, had those actions not been implemented. So again, I'd like to thank them for that. In terms of our forecast for the rest of the year, we expect that passenger numbers will be somewhere in the region of 75% less than our original projections for this calendar year. But we continue to work extremely hard to attract additional carriers as and when travel restrictions begin to be eased. We know that there is appetite from airlines in terms of dialogue that we have to begin flying services should the tourism economy open up during the course of the summer. That is obviously a narrowing window as we get further into that summer season. But the team will be engaged in continuing to run as efficient an operation as possible. After this restructure, we will continue to look to make use of the job retention scheme, probably on a part-time basis, as traffic builds in that profile that I've highlighted during July, August and September, until such time as hopefully the processes around the London PSO get closer to a conclusion, and that core service that forms the backbone of the airport's traffic base and the passenger terminal operation begins its recovery.
Okay. Thank you very much for that rather sobering report.
Councillor Brown's indicated he wishes to ask a question or he wishes to speak.
Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I just say, first of all, that I'm really pleased, given the double whammy that we got of the demise of Flybe and then almost immediately on top of that COVID-19, the positive news about air route recovery. Obviously, there's a long way to go, and I think it's going to be well into 2020 before we see anything like a return to some sort of normality. But could I thank Richard for the tremendous amount of work that he and his team have put in during lockdown, and also welcome Pete Downs to his new role. Very much, Pete, I think a baptism of fire. I'm sure when you agreed to take the job, you didn't realise what it's going to entail. I have got one question. I don't know whether Pete or Richard can advise us where we are with the outstanding debt owed to us by Flybe.
Yes, I can advise that the discussions with the lessor, that is the owner of the aircraft that we have detained under Section 88 of the Civil Aviation Act. Those discussions are, I am optimistic, moving to a conclusion, and I think we're very close to securing a settlement for the majority of the outstanding Flybe debt. We will hopefully be in a position at the next meeting to advise the conclusion of that process. I can't say much more than that in terms of the commercial sensitivities of those discussions, but they are very active, and they are progressing well.
Thank you.
Councillor Rushworth, Chairman.
Steve.
So thank you. Peter, welcome to Cornwall, and I'm sure there's only one way to go from where you are at the moment, and that's up. And rest assured that the majority of members that I speak to at Cornwall Council are fully supportive of the airport, and we'll do everything in our powers to help you get to the next point of recovery. Just one question I wanted to ask. A lot of businesses took out insurance against COVID-19 type COVID-19 and all that kind of thing. Did we take? I know they haven't been paid out yet, but there are several court cases going on at the moment, and I think a lot of businesses are hoping that the result will come on their side. But did we take out any insurance as an airport?
So I know that a large number of the business continuity policies that organisations have taken out have obviously been deemed by insurers to effectively not cover the coronavirus pandemic. I would undertake, if that's okay, to take the specifics of that question away and come back to you, unless Richard is in a position where he can advise on the specifics of that.
Councillor Fisher is next, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, John.
Welcome, Pete. I'm the local member for the airport, and on behalf of the community in St Morgan Village, we extend to you a very heartily welcome, and we look forward the liaison group that we've established with the parish council. They will look forward when you've got a minute to spare in the autumn to meeting you personally and congratulating you on your appointment and welcome you to the village community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will ensure that we make time for that.
Can I ask Councillor Rushworth, if you don't wish to ask another question, could you lower your hand, please, Councillor Rushworth, and Councillor Fisher, if you don't, can you do the same, please? Thank you. No more indications to speak at the road. Oh, beg your pardon. Thelma Sorensen has raised her hand, Chairman.
Thelma.
Yes. Welcome, Pete, on behalf of the business community. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Regarding Flybe, the new consortium, when it says it went into liquidation or administration, whatever they call it these days, there was talk of a consortium taking it over. Is there any sort of development on that score?
No, there are no further developments within the aviation sector in terms of a consortium making steps towards the creation of a new airline. Although I can say that we continue to engage with existing airlines and those that are that have aspirations and plans to form new startup airlines. We remain very much open to discussions with both of those types of organisations as various parties look to the post-coronavirus era as an opportunity to potentially start up a new carrier or new carriers to fill the significant number of gaps in the UK's air route network that have been left behind and remain unfilled by Flybe. So no progress in terms of the setting up of a carrier, but we remain in dialogue with those that are having aspirations to create such an entity.
Thank you very much. And will the PSO help you with those discussions?
The PSO is vital for the London route for us, and we're working very closely with Councillor Brown and with the council team in terms of providing any support to them that we can in the very difficult process that they have at the current time of retendering that PSO in the most dynamic environment for commercial aviation that I think that the industry has ever known.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wood, next, Chairman.
Thank you. Welcome, Peter. I have to ask awkward questions as we're custodians of the public purse. When you say a forecast of 75% drop in numbers, obviously, if I went to my bank manager of my business and said I'm losing 75% in my gross turnover, he would look at me with skepticism and say, well, are you coming to me for a loan or are you coming to me for a bailout? Fortunately, the airport is strategically very important. Are we obviously in negotiations with the government to say that we will need a heavy subsidy to keep us going? Obviously, Cornwall Council will do all it can, because I totally agree it's strategically very important to not only our business community, but as an airport for other reasons. When will we actually get an indication of the figures and whether the government are going to support us?
So those discussions with principally the Department for Transport are being led by Cornwall Council at the moment, so I would not wish to comment on their behalf on the outcome of those discussions. What I would say is that the aviation industry, both in terms of airline bodies such as the Airport Operators Association, Airlines UK, the Regional and Business Airport Association, all of which we have active dialogue with, are united in their call for short-term support for our aviation industry, which is a world-class industry and is going through a very challenging short-term period, but has a very viable long-term future. So we're working closely with the council and providing them with all the support that they need in terms of that dialogue with the Department for Transport for grant funding to provide short-term support for the airport through these unprecedented times, in recognition, as you say, of the strategic importance of Cornwall Airport, Newquay, to the region and to regional connectivity.
Thank you for that. I wish I could share your optimism by saying short term. I think we're going to see ourselves way into 2022 before we actually can start sort of clearing our heels, but then that's my own personal opinion. But thank you very much for that, Peter, and good luck.
Thanks. I very much agree with the prognosis that this is potentially a 2 to 5 year recovery to the levels that we've been at before. But a huge part of what we will be doing within Cornwall Airport Limited is, as well as making short-term the necessary short-term restructuring to provide a more efficient cost base, we will be looking forward at how we build greater levels of efficiency into how we operate, so that for that period of time where passenger numbers will undoubtedly be below the levels that we saw in 2018 and 2019, we build a leaner and more efficient operating model to respond dynamically rather than just waiting for those passenger numbers to return. Thanks.
That's great, thanks.
Anyone else, Paul, who wanted to speak?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one else indicating to speak at the moment, but I would like to, if possible, propose on behalf of the forum a vote of thanks to Richard Thomason and to Peter Downs for all the exceptional hard work that they've undertaken over the last 3 months. I think it's shown a great degree of leadership, a great degree of foresight, and I think we are all grateful to Richard and obviously to Pete, who's just come on board, for all the tremendous hard work that they have done to keep the airport ready should it be up and functioning again. But I think it's important that we have recorded a vote of thanks from the forum to Richard and to Peter and to all the staff for the tremendous hard work that they have done. And I would like to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the forum.
That's a great idea, that, Paul. I'm more than happy to second that. I do have a couple of questions before we move to that vote of thanks. I do have a couple of questions I'd like to ask Pete. Welcome to Cornwall, Pete. Are there any other airports? I've got two questions. Are there any other airports in the UK that are doing things that you would like to do right now, but are not able for some reason or other? Is there anyone you'd like to say, well, they're doing something I'd really like to do, but we just can't do here?
I don't think there are any examples of airports that have a light bulb moment of a solution to this that nobody else has thought of. I think in some respects we have some of the advantages that I've mentioned in terms of our ability to hopefully redeploy some of our affected staff across the group with a view to opportunities being recreated in the future when passenger numbers begin to grow. A key area that I will be focusing on as we move forward is, as I mentioned earlier, the use of technology and automation to make the processes of handling passenger volumes in the terminal more efficient. One of the key changes we will see is in a world before the administration of Flybe, we had 78-seat aircraft providing a fairly steady flow of flights and therefore passengers through the terminal across the operating day, which aids in the rostering of staff to provide a steady service. What we are likely to see in the new world is not a carrier of that ilk to replace Flybe in the same way. We will be likely to see smaller aircraft such as the Eastern Airways services and larger aircraft such as British Airways, therefore giving us similar levels of peak passenger throughput but much lower levels of passengers and therefore aeronautical revenue overall. So it's vital that we rethink how we use technology to actually manage some of those peaks without effectively driving the operating cost base of the terminal up, and that is something that potentially larger airports with greater economies of scale will be able to do, but we will need as a business to find smart ways to do that. So I would say technology and automation will be key when we move forward, and I would link into that opportunities to make some progress in a cleaner future and in decarbonisation of our effectively our airport and our ramp activities, if you like, in terms of how we turn around aircraft, and we should be looking to as we get into that new way of working, we should be looking to make that as green and as decarbonised as we possibly can. So I'd say those are the two areas where we will be looking for ideas and support. And potentially investment that will provide benefits, both financial and environmental, for the long term.
Okay, thank you very much for your detailed response. And just one final question. Sadly, there's going to be 36 redundancies up at the airport. You did mention that initially that was going to be about 70, but you managed to reduce that down to 36. Are the other 35, are they still vulnerable, or are they secure for the long term?
Essentially, that is the balance of that is cost that we took rapid steps to remove from the business. That is insourcing some outsourced contracts around things like night security. That was a seasonal recruitment process that we had begun, where essentially it was clear to us in the very early stages of this pandemic that there would not be that need for an operational ramp up, and we took early steps to make those decisions to get the cost base down, and therefore we've delivered the cost base we need with those 36 redundancies as things stand within the market at the moment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that.
There's another indicator for somebody to speak, but I think it's also important for members to know that those 36, am I right in what I heard yesterday, that have been offered redundancy or looking at redundancy, it's hoping that they will be re-employed somewhere within the CoreServe group. So it's important, I think, for people listening to this to understand that. Thelma Sorensen has indicated she wishes to speak, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair, to come in after your final question, but
No, that's fine.
Are there any plans to utilise the hangar that's been vacated by Skybus?
At the moment, we obviously have that hangar that is vacant. There are some remedial works that need to be carried out to bring that hangar back to the market. But we have an estates manager within the Cornwall Airport Limited team, whose role it is to actively market and bring new tenants and new customers across the estate. So we will be marketing that facility and working hard to get a new carrier or a new operator of some description, I should say, within the aviation sector. To lease that hangar in the long term. So yes, the work is actively ongoing to find a new tenant for that property.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's fine. Any more questions, Paul? Can we go
No
back to
more
your
indications at
proposal?
the moment, Mr. Chairman.
What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
No more indications at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so to move back to Paul's proposal, as a vote of thanks for all the work that Richard and Peter have done over the last few months. We've got a proposal from Paul, and I think I seconded it. Rather than going around, I suggest that if anyone's against sending a letter of thanks, that they speak now or forever hold their peace, so to speak, so we can just sort of take it as read that we can give that letter of thanks to the team.
We've got a raised hand from Stephen Murdoch.
Stephen Murdoch.
Yeah, hi Pete, welcome to Cornwall. I just wanted to say I fully support the letter and the endorsement of that, but I also wanted to add that we've flown 194 life-saving missions since the start of lockdown, and none of those would have been possible without the support of Newquay Airport. So that's my personal thanks to you, Richard, and the rest of the team.
Okay, thank you for that, Stephen. Thank you very much. I'm sure that will be factored into any letter of thanks that we send out. We can add that as well.
No more indications for anyone wishing to speak, Mr. Chairman, so I think you can take it as a unanimous decision.
Okay, that's great. So if we can now move on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is the Aero Hub Enterprise Zone activity summary report. Normally this would be done by Ian. However, we have, and I forgot his name for a second, the chap who's going to
it's Matthew Vowles. Matthew Vowles.
Matty. So Matty,
Yeah.
do you want to go through the report?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I will do, Chair. Thank you. I won't. I'll summarise the report. No doubt you've had a look at it. But 6 of the 9 units of Sector 2 of the offices are now let or under offer. So that's positive, and the interest being shown with those who are in negotiation seem to be reasonably resilient to what has happened over the last 2.5-3 months. So we are hoping that that those will proceed to completion. In terms of the industrial units, we are in a sort of similar position with 1 unit let, with the remaining 7 under offer. 1 or 6 of them are at an advanced legal stage, and hopefully those will proceed to completion. Certainly discussions with the potential occupier has been very positive to date, and they want to continue. They found that their general business has not been as affected as most others, so that's a positive news story. Hopefully when that is complete. So I think we're a matter of weeks away on that one. So that's the position with Sector 2, which was an ERDF funded project. In terms of the business park, Sector 11 remains under offer and an advanced legal stage. We've just sort of finalised the last hurdle on that, and hopefully that will now proceed to completion in terms of an agreement for lease and lease. Sector 14 has fallen away, as the report indicated. That was under offer, but has been subject to the pandemic, and Sector 15, the Watergate Bay offices, that's due to complete early next month. So that's positive, and Watergate Bay are intending to occupy the majority of that space, although they will be underletting part of the middle floor, which was always the intention anyway, to associated businesses. In no way will that sort of conflict with what we're doing on Sector 2 offices, because they are very much more serviced related tenants that they are aiming to secure and related to their existing business. So that's the position on the business park. In terms of the South Cornwall Airport, Newquay, our focus is primarily around the south side of the airport, and in terms of what we report there, as it's indicated that surveys are well underway for Spaceport, which I'm sure Miles will amplify shortly. In terms of the infrastructure and utilities surveys, Cormac have been commissioned to undertake those, and that's just recommenced following lockdown. And in terms of the overall demand picture for the south side, in terms of the paucity of space really on the south side of the airport, as I'm sure Graham Scrimmager will sort of confirm, is that the demand seems to be reasonably resilient, mainly resulting from our Cornwall Trade and Investment activity and our aerospace ERDF project, which is throwing up quite a lot of demand, as well as interest arising from Spaceport activity as well. So that seems to be reasonably resilient at the moment, but clearly we need to deliver those in obviously an appropriate accommodation and realise them into leases. In terms of the Enterprise Zone Growth Fund, there weren't any awards during this last period. There weren't any applications either, although some are in train, but haven't moved forward or in a position to be presented to the board. And in terms of the Enterprise Zone performance, it's as reported. Clearly, that's all pre-COVID, so it'd be interesting that at the next meeting as to see the picture post-COVID. So all of those performance figures are self-reported, so there isn't, it's reasonably accurate, and of course it's always quite difficult to get the focus of those businesses to report when required. So there is a sort of caveat on those numbers. They can fluctuate up and down. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you very much for that.
Chairman, Councillor Rushworth is indicated.
Steve?
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you. It's good to hear some positive news, but could you confirm out of the negotiations that we've just completed or about to complete, have we had to give any incentives to get them on board, like rent-free periods, etc., etc.?
I think, yeah, go on.
I've
sorry.
finished. I've got.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I couldn't follow up. But the previous meeting to that, we were given quite an upbeat presentation of how many people were showing interest, and it was around about 7 or 8 people. You made no mention to interest in your address. Could you give us an update whether that interest has dropped away, or whether we're picking up new interest, or there is no interest? That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. In terms of the last question first, are you talking? I wasn't at the last meeting, so I wasn't so privy to those discussions. But yeah, I mean, I think the as I sort of mentioned, the interest seems to be relatively resilient. There have been 1 or 2 sort of casualties in terms of companies obviously ceasing to pursue their inquiries. But since more recently, the agents Vickery-Holman report actually a sort of resurgence of demand. Really, I think is a sort of pent up demand from everyone being under lockdown and not really knowing what the position is and when their businesses can restart. So you've had that sort of response from the marketplace, which you could read is relatively positive. How real it is, of course, will be determined. So the interest is as I say, reasonably resilient. But of course, you know, that's just interest and not necessarily converted into leases. So we've still got to work hard on delivering those leases, certainly in terms of the offices sector 2. And you know, returning to your sort of first question, then in terms of incentives, we have offered those businesses, in order to keep them on board, incentives in terms of rent-free periods, and in a sense, by offering it rather than waiting for them to ask, I think has been received well, given the circumstances, because obviously they wouldn't have proceeded on the normal timescale anyway, and in a sense it was important to give them sufficient sort of ability to get their business back on track, but obviously keep them on board in terms of their interest in the offices. I think that has worked well. It hasn't been all right the way across the board. To be perfectly honest, we haven't sort of had to offer them all of those tenants. So in that sense, it's worked well. We've been on the front foot in terms of those negotiations, rather than having to recover from a sort of decision that the business has made in the absence of that flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fisher, Chairman.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew, welcome. Matthew,
thank you.
You speak. I've got a couple of questions, sir, if I may ask you. If I can go to the offices, and we're talking the offices in sector 2, and you're saying various sort of inducements to try to get people on board and given them sort of rent-free periods. If we can look at what we have up at the moment. At the moment, in sector 2 at the offices, we actually have 2 tenants. That's correct, sir? They're on the middle floor, and one of them is a energy company, Blue Energy or something, and the other, and the other tenant is Spaceport. Can you confirm that both of those tenants are paying a rent, or if they're not, who has got some sort of discount? And my second question is, in your report, Sector 3, Cornwall Airport, Newquay, the South Side Infrastructure Project paragraph, you say specific requirement for Spaceport. If you could just give us a little tease out of what those requirements may well be, sir. Thank you.
Right, fine. And Simply Blue, they leased their offices some while ago, so they're sort of currently obviously occupying under those terms. In terms of Spaceport's occupation, they need to be at the airport. There isn't a sort of formal lease associated with Spaceport. It's always been based on the understanding that if there was significant demand from other businesses, which we don't have at the moment, that obviously alternative accommodation would be made for them. But at the moment, that was always seen as a sort of temporary sort of facility that may then morph into a more permanent position in terms of formal lease. But I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. At the moment, there's still two units that are unlet, and we haven't got any interest in those specifically. So we'll work on that basis. It's important that Spaceport are present at Sector 2. It's a good location for them in order to promote the project. In terms of the Southside infrastructure specific for spaceport. It's as I mean, Miles will amplify this undoubtedly in terms of what his specific activities are, but essentially that relates to the survey work relating to the preparations and understanding what the needs are for the airport to accommodate the the horizontal takeoff and launch proposed by Virgin Orbit. That's what the specific requirements are referring to.
May I just come back in, Mr. Chairman, just to ask?
Certainly, John.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that. So that everyone understands the cost connotations. Are we keeping sort of a hidden cost register of the expenditure of spaceport and the operation? You say there is no demand for the office at the moment. They need to be up there, but they're for sort of balancing the cost of the project as a whole. Are we keeping a notional cost then of the cost of them occupying through rates, because presumably rates would have to be paid or claimed back or something? I just wonder if we're keeping a notional cost of the operation as it stands up at the airport.
Well, it's I mean, it's very easy to sort of calculate what that notional cost could be. It would be a very easy exercise to do. Equally, I would say that there's a counterbalance to that cost, which is obviously the benefit of having spaceport there and the visitors to the premises. So it certainly acts as a strong marketing magnet and benefit to the Air Hub Business Park, the offices themselves, and indeed the airport. And I think that's the counterbalance to that sort of notional cost that you refer to, I would suggest.
There's no more indications for anyone to speak at the moment, Mr. Chairman, but I just wanted to pick up on what John said, if I may, Matthew. And I think what John's referring to is costs like electricity, water, things like that. I mean, how's that being paid? Is that being paid by Spaceport? Are we picking up the tab?
I think I don't know the detail, I'm afraid, Chair, in terms of that, but essentially yes, I suppose is the answer to the question. That is being paid for,
Miles is
and offset by the income that is coming in.
I think
Chairman Miles has indicated he wishes to speak, so I think he wishes to answer that question.
Certainly, I was going to suggest Miles can clarify it. Miles, if you want to come in. Miles?
Hi, sorry, Mr. Chair. At that very moment, my home phone number rang, so my apologies. Yes, just to clear, in terms of the costs for the spaceport office, then service charge, electricity, and the payment of rates is fully within the project cost. So that is covered within the spaceport project, and that is obviously remind members of the committee that the spaceport team are now employees of Cornwall Council, and therefore the spaceport office is a Cornwall Council presence in the building. And obviously we're a permanent presence in that building to assist the council with the management of that building and various other matters. So and when they're ready, then the project has provision in it for the payment of rental for the building as well. So that's fully covered. We can actually look at the cost of that and declare what those are. So any outgoings are such electricity and rates are fully covered within the project. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any further questions from the panel?
No one else has indicated to speak at the moment, Mr. Chairman, so
that's fine. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Matty. I shall now move on to agenda item number 10, which is the spaceport. So if Miles, you want to come back in?
Yeah, good morning, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Vice, and the members of the committee. Thank you for this. I think you've seen my report. So what I'll try and do is firstly pick up some of the points that were made by other members on the questions and obviously highlight any updates. In terms of my summary report, just to pick up some highlights, as Matthew said, we've been working really hard with the team in Cornwall Airport Limited, looking at the works we require to ahead of our license application for Spaceport next year, and that would include some of the infrastructure works on the airport itself. So we've been working hard to look at the regulated costs, i.e. the work we need to do to the runway and the aprons at the airport and the lighting to make sure we're compliant for the airport. That's going really well, and obviously we're working in conjunction with the Cornwall Council's capital projects team and Cornwall Airport Limited and their advisors and Virgin to bottom those works out, and that's reaching a conclusion, and hopefully I'll be able to report back at the next meeting regarding that. As I said on the last question, the Spaceport team are now within Cornwall Council, been TUPE'd from Cornwall Development Company into the council. That's broadly to provide some efficiencies as we move from a concept funding stage into an actual delivery of the airport itself. And the team are currently based when we can go to the office. Obviously we're not there now, working from home, but we're based on the Sector 2 development in the offices on the south side of the airport. In terms of the next steps, the two things I'd like to cover, and as covered in my report, the two key things are, firstly, I provided an update on the technology development of Virgin Orbit System in the USA. As on the 20th of May, as most of you probably picked up in the press, they had a launch of partial success. The rocket did not go to space or to orbit, and I provided a link in terms of some more detailed information if people want to read up on what happened with that rocket deployment. The team learned a huge amount from it. It was not considered to be seen as a failure. These things happen in space to the largest investor companies. So the company are looking at what happened on that test and are working rapidly towards the next test, which is phased within the next month or so. So we expect by the next meeting that launch would have occurred to orbit, and I can report more on that. I think critical other issue for us at the moment is a COVID-19 related issue, which is the secondary legislation which we require to operate a spaceport and apply for our license. That was due out for consultation in April this year, and due to COVID-19, the cross-departmental government sign-off of that consultation has not occurred. We expect that to be imminent, and we're waiting further advice from the UK Space Agency and government on when that will occur. So we've already built that into our programme, and we're working broadly that we may have a short delay in the first launch by about 2 to 3 months, because that the lack of legislation may mean we can't apply for a licence when we expected. So we don't think it's a massive material delay, and we're working with Virgin Orbit in terms of what that means, but it's not material, and we think we can move forward. Another critical thing, as was mentioned in the chairman's response to the public question, another critical thing that occurred this week is the US and the UK governments have signed what's called a technical safeguarding agreement, and that broadly is agreement between the two governments to be allowed to US technology to be deployed to the UK and vice versa. So it's a very significant trade agreement announcement around space technologies, both for our site and also other vertical launch sites in the UK. So without that agreement in place, we can't bring the US technology from Virgin Orbit to this country or other systems as well. So again, that's a critical thing. So on page 2 of my report, the other highlight is we're now working very heavily with Virgin Orbit around the supply chain to support the system in the UK, and predominantly that's an initial contract to let the build contract for the ground support equipment for the aircraft so it can operate in the UK, which will be based in Cornwall and be a Cornwall asset. In terms of the process, we've gone through a national supply day in relation to choosing the tier 1 supplier, and we last night had a webinar to open up that opportunity for tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers in the supply chain, in the Cornish supply chain. And we've got a significant amount of interest working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Cornwall Manufacturers Association in looking at the potential for Cornish companies to benefit from supplying Virgin Orbit with the equipment they need and the support they need to support launch from 2022. So I think that's probably all I cover, Chair. I am happy to take questions.
Councillor Rushworth has indicated, Mr. Chairman, as indeed as yourself, in the chat box.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go first, Mr. Chairman? Might be a good idea.
Yes, certainly. It was just for a previous question we had from the member of the public. I don't know whether it's a technical question, and I'm not sure whether he can answer it. I think the member of the public was stating that the fuels that's being used in the rocket that we're using is liquid fuel. However, the successful launches of the Grumman Northrop have always been using solid fuel in their rockets or boosters. I'm just wondering if you could provide an answer for that question.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to provide a broad answer to that. If you look at the different types of rockets around the world, both small and large, they all tend to use different fuel systems depending on the choice of their business choice or historic choice or their propulsional rocket system. So broadly, they are either solid propellants or liquid propellants. The technology is a choice for the operator that they believe to be the right and safe choice for that. So there's probably a dozen or so, probably more types of mixtures, both gases and obviously liquids. So, but as I reiterated in the question earlier, a rocket propellant and liquid oxygen mixture is a pretty common choice of that in both small and large launchers, both from the largest, i.e. Saturn V, down to some of the smallest, more modern systems like Rocket Lab's Electron. And the Rocket Lab's Electron is probably the good one to look at because it's a relatively similar rocket to what Virgin Orbit are proposing. So it's not untypical, and therefore we were aware that the Pegasus Northrop Grumman system used a different system, but many others do that. So yes, in terms of other horizontal launch rockets, a LOX kerosene mix has not been used, but we believe it's a reliable, often used technology. So we don't believe that to be a high risk factor in the considerations of the technology being sound. So we're comfortable with that. We know that, and we're confident in the Virgin Orbit system will work.
That's great. Thank you for your detailed answer. Thank you.
Councillor Rushworth, Kenny, and then Fitter, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got two questions. The first one is really following on from your question regarding the fuel source. Is that the fuel, liquid fuel is mainly been used, and it's very successfully, and for many years. It's probably technology that's 60 years old for horizontal launches, but surely the nature of it being liquid must cause real problems for an horizontal launch that then turns into a vertical launch because liquids move. So, is it that, I've got great worries that we're maybe not using the modern technologies, which I think another deliverer has been successful with. And have you looked into that? So that really following on for all these questions. That's my first question. Going to the £12 million that the council approved, and I think all of us on this panel supported that money, but there were caveats in there that they should come back to council because you had to it before it was drawdowns were taken, because you had, all members had great concerns about the technology and the success that Mr. Branson would have with it. So could you tell me, have you used any of that money, and if so, how much and what for? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you happy for me to respond?
Oh yes.
Okay, so that's fine. In terms of I don't want to sort of dwell. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm happy to take a more detailed discussion around the technologies in the future or offline. I'm happy to have those discussions with anybody, or other further questions can be posed. I don't think a LOX kerosene is an old technology. Again, this is all online. I would urge people to perhaps go and look at Rocket Labs, who are now launching out in New Zealand. So it's a new rocket technology based in a new spaceport in North Island, New Zealand, from a New Zealand company based with American backing, and they're using a LOX kerosene mix. So I don't think that's a brand new system. So I don't think they would see that as a old technology, and I think that they urge you to do that. So we believe it's a sound basis to proceed on, and we don't believe that the horizontal nature of that is an effect on the liquid that's covered by the technology through version. But I suggest I can pick that up later rather than dwell too much time on that, and hopefully got a clear answer to the other question. We have not committed any of the capital funds approved by Cornwall Council to the airport and spaceport as it stands today, because until we reach various milestones, of which one is the technology success in the US, we were not going to commit those funds at that stage. So, and I think Councillor Jeff Brown has left the meeting, but I think he would reiterate that, and he reiterated that at a council cabinet or full council meeting this week, I understand, when the public question was posed. And I think we could quite easily circulate 2 questions that were posed to cabinet this week. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Miles.
Mr. Chairman.
Joanna.
Thank you, Chair, and hello, Miles. Same question on the 12 million, but my understanding is that it's that entire 12 million is going to be spent on the structure of the airport, depending on what the regulations are. Now, obviously, there's a delay in getting the regulations out. Do we have any unofficial view? I mean, we've always said it was the runway, the lighting. I can't remember the other one, but is there any change behind the scenes, or are we still looking at the same sort of works?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to respond again. Thank you for the question. In terms of the approvals in council, it was broadly a £10 million approval for capital, and broadly was a £2 million approval for revenue, which was in terms of the team cost, in terms of any other cost in studies required prior to the application for the license of the spaceport. So we do need to do some very significant studies around environmental impacts, and some of the work we're doing currently to investigate things like the technical side and the works required for the airport. So, and of the £10 million to do with the airport, the vast majority of that is regulatory. So we're looking at both existing regulations to operate the very large aircraft, the Boeing 747, and that's based on existing regulations under EASA and CAA. So there will be some works that we need to undertake for regular use of the airport by large wide-body aircraft, and I think that's another business opportunity for the airport going forward, of that ability to be able to manage and operate those aircraft easily. Is something that we're looking at, and then we've got some works to be done on the apron, some lighting, some security, and the provision of what's called a payload processing facility, which is broadly, in simplistic terms, a building to house the rocket prior to launch and the equipment required to service that. So it's the £10 million that is dependent on clarity on the technology and having sight of the regulation. But the space flight regulation, to reiterate, we do have the Space Industry Act, so we have the law to do it. It's the detail of that, and we don't believe that will be overly prescriptive. It would be us to say what we require to operate the system and how we base our safety case, how we can do that safely, and the procedures behind that. So it's almost a bottom-up pushing in terms of to the regulator, and we've done some amazing work with Cornwall Airport Limited over the last few months. I think we're in a very, very good, comfortable position to be able to progress to those works when we're ready to do so, and that will probably be committed to those funds much later in the year, probably in the autumn this year into next. I think what we might want to do is to work with the airport really closely to maybe do the works when the airport is quieter now. So if we're doing runway work, we think we can do those really efficiently and quickly at the moment when there are less services using and operating. So on the counter, obviously, it is a very challenging time for the airport, and obviously we're working really closely with the team at the airport. But critical for us is the fact that we might have a window of opportunity to do this at efficiently at lower cost when flights are less frequent. So that's the opportunity we're trying to take, but that won't be until the autumn this year at the very earliest.
So we're not expecting any nasty surprises from the regulations?
And no, we're not, and it's for us to determine what those are likely to be. So
regulations like it.
I think what we've got to think about is the CEA and the Department of Transport are promoting spaceflight as an opportunity. So they want to find practical ways to make the regulation proportionate and affordable. If we're not affordable as a location, and if there is a regulation cost, we will need to pass that on to our operators. They recognise that, so they are very much on the same page as us, as making this efficient and cost effective, and keeping the regulation proportionate to what we need to do. So we don't believe that there are any major surprises, and some of the work, as I said, really good work we've been doing with Cornwall Airport Limited to look at some really good practical solutions that could reduce our costs quite significantly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the questions. Paul, anyone else on the waiting to speak?
No one else indicating to speak at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, I think Paul did indicate I was due to speak, but he seems to ignore me.
You dropped your hand, John. That's why. Sorry.
Well, yes, I dropped it because you're always asking us to drop our hand as soon as you call our name. But so may I speak now, Mr. Chairman?
John, you're more than welcome to come in.
Thank you very much indeed. Miles, welcome, sir. Miles, a couple of points. If I can just clarify a moment before. The £2 million is the revenue stream, and the £10 million is the development of the aerodrome itself for doing that. So out of that £2 million, are we now drawing down from that money the expenses of your team and any operational costs that goes with it? Is that now in that budget, or is it still in a CDC budget? And you've got a certain amount of money from CDC. No, sorry, from the Homes and Community Agency. I do apologise, Homes and Community. And this is to help you to prepare the aerodrome for the spaceport development. And my first question is, and this is quite important, in that Homes and Community Agency money, I believe you've got it to demolish buildings, etc., and to make space to eventually build a hangar, because the hangar was in your original £10 million costings. And my question is quite simple: is what is the reason for the spaceport team continuing to press for the demolition of the former RAF control tower, which is acknowledged in Cornwall Council's own report that they produced in 2011 as being historically very, very important to Cornwall? And the reason why I ask that question is because it makes far better sense to demolish the former fire station, which would give direct access to the Echo Apron, and so you could then build your hangar on that location. And it does seem to me rather ludicrous that we're demolishing something which really doesn't actually fit the purpose. My second question is, sir, and this is that on page 40 of the report, you are working, which is brilliant, with other spaceports around the world, and including Scotland, in a way to collaborate and promote a joint launch offer to industry. I wonder if you could give us the background to what you mean by a joint launch offer to industry. Thank you, sir.
Are you happy for me to respond, Mr. Chair? I'll carry on. Yes, John, thank you for the questions. I think there's a couple of things in there. Just hopefully quickly, on the £2 million worth of revenue, yes, that has been committed since the full council approval. That is to pay for all the costs of spaceport, including the Cornwall Council spaceport team, which obviously I am part. We are council employees, and all the expenses that goes with that. So that's been properly provided for in that £2 million, and that is being committed both for team costs and other work required as we move this forward. So and we have to continue that to maintain momentum. And that was the commitment we made through the council process. So hopefully it answers that one. There is no money within CDC, and CDC have no direct activity in the the spaceport project as it stands today. They are involved in other activities like Cornwall Trade Investment and some of the sector support work that's being done, and some of the property aspects that we're reliant on, such as Choose Cornwall, which Matthew can probably give you more details on. In terms of the homes and communities money, I can be brief on that because I'm not directly involved with that money. The council, Cornwall Council, have a fund but was provided for from the Homes Communisation, now Homes England, and the main drive for that is to open up the south side of the airport for development, including some of the final servicing of the south side and some of the other aspects required, including demolitions. And one of those parts of money was the air traffic control tower that has been raised at the Consultative Forum at a previous meeting. I'm not directly involved in that project because it's the spaceport does not require the removal of the air traffic control tower as it stands, but the air traffic control tower, I understand, was a priority project for demolition by Cornwall Airport Limited last year, and Cornwall Council have now been progressing with that project going forward. So, but probably Matthew and or Pete may be better placed to answer that response than the air traffic control tower as speak, because I reiterate, it's not something that I'm directly involved with. I have some involvement because obviously we have meetings looking at the independencies of projects on the airport south side, but not that one. And the final question was about the joint launch offer. In a brief, then there are a number of other launch sites around the UK and mainly in Scotland. Shetland Space Centre and Sutherland are the two. We are looking at a couple of things where we can work together for mutual benefit. One is how we conduct launch and whether we can have some cost savings for sharing launch services on launch, such as range control and mission management, and other ways in terms we can work together, promote our offer in the UK globally. So we're looking at drawing in investment into the UK based on space, and the signing of the TSA, the Technology Safeguarding Agreement this week allows us to look at that. So we're broadly looking at our capabilities as spaceports, drawing those together and working together in terms of investment and operations. I hope that helps. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Miles. That is absolutely wonderful. I'm delighted that you're working with other agencies. If we could just quickly go back to this control tower, which has become a bit of a call celeb, certainly with me and certainly with other people who feel it's vital that we should look after items of historical interest, even if England, Heritage England don't want to list it. But can I just make it clear that you said you yourself, the spaceport team, are not promoting and have not requested and have not asked for the former air traffic control tower to be demolished. Is that correct, sir?
Correct. We are involved in a joint project on the south side. So as I said, there's a south side infrastructure group of officers, both in CAL, Cornwall Council and CDC, that regularly meet around the interdependencies between different projects working on the airport, spaceport, the plans for Cornwall Airport Limited in terms of the south side. So we often discuss the proposal, but the proposal to demolish the air traffic control tower was a priority project for Cornwall Airport Limited, and Cornwall Council capital programs team have been working on that for that. But we do not need spaceport does not require the demolition of that tower or the demolition of the fire station. I hasten to add, we don't need any demolitions. The only building we're looking at the moment is the refurbishment of the existing building on the airport, and we're working with Cornwall Airport Limited in terms of the options for that building as it stands. So we do not need the demolition of the air traffic control tower to deliver spaceport.
Thank you very much indeed. You've been absolutely clear, Miles, and thank you very much indeed. I'm very grateful for your time, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor
Thank
Ross,
you, John.
Chairman.
Thank you. I'd forgotten on the other page I'd highlighted. Miles, you in your report on page 40, you say that all the events that you were lined up to go to, the Farnborough show and various other things, in your opinion, how much of a setback is that in PR and maintaining the business of the spaceport that this COVID-19 has affected? I know it will affect everybody else as well, but in your opinion, is it a great setback? And are we missing a lot by not going to meet all these people? And just to come back on you about I know you want to do it offline, but just for clarity, I googled the New Zealand space launch. It's Electron, and it's by Rocket Lab, the people who are doing it. But that's a vertical launch. It's not an horizontal launch. And so, how many people at the moment are doing horizontal launches? We know that Branson's doing horizontal launch, but is anybody else at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to come in on the two
fine,
things.
yes.
So, in terms of events, then we are where we are with obviously COVID-19. We've got to manage our process to do that. We're all doing things differently. One of the biggest setbacks we had potentially was the webinars we were doing for the supply chain events with Virgin Orbit, and we reset really quickly and went over to virtual meetings, and they're probably not as powerful for business to business marketing, and we hope at some stage we will get some element of B2B marketing, but we've got a good pipeline of investment, and we're fundamentally concentrating on the project at hand. So we need to make sure that we've got a lot of work to do to get towards that launch date. So at the moment, yes, it'd be great in an ideal world to have events and promotion, but we're all working differently. So we're constantly doing more online work in terms of most of the conferences are converting to online work. I think everyone would welcome I think it'd be different and more focused, but I think a return to some element of face-to-face would be good, but I don't believe it to be a significant setback. I don't want to. I'm quite happy to discuss the technology, and I would answer the question. Yeah, I fully understand that Electron is vertical, as are the other two rockets that we mentioned in that. But Electron is a very similar size rocket to Virgin Orbit, and the dynamics of the launch between horizontal and vertical are not massively different on a technical basis in terms of the rocket technologies. The rocket tends to fly in a horizontal launch for a period, and the technology on Launcher One does that rather than the vertical launch. But dwelling on that as an issue around the fuel, I don't think is a major issue. We're confident that was the case. In terms of the overall others doing it, then we've reiterated that Orbital ADK, or now Northrop Grumman, was the only successful horizontal launch system. This is new technology. There are others out there in development, some of which we are in discussions with, but we're very well aware that the current position with this technology, it is new and it's in test and research. So we need to wait for that technology to develop to a commercial basis before we're making those commitments. But we are confident to do that. I think if you look at the marketplace with the MOD, both in the UK and elsewhere, endorsing Virgin Orbit's technology as a potential important part of future launch, as have others, and industry has, I think that is a significant thing. So we're confident in the team at Virgin Orbit. We're confident that the technology is sound. So we hope that this launch will come soon and prove that success. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles, for clarifying. And you don't need to come back to me on the technical stuff. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a layman, but it's just logical it does that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions, Steve. Any more questions, John? Paul?
No one else has indicated to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that in mind then, I think unless we're on to date and time of next meeting and any other business. Before we do the date and time of the meeting, is there anything else anyone would like to add at this point?
I just wanted to ask Miles a question. Miles, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah, brilliant. Great to see you.
I haven't run away, don't worry.
Great to see you again. Obviously, there's been a couple of technical issues with the test flights, as you alluded to in your report. And now you're looking at hopefully a launch date of maybe early 2022. That's right, yeah?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So with the technical issues that they are experiencing, and given the fact that Virgin Atlantic have said, you know, that they are in trouble financially because of COVID-19. My concern is that if Virgin Galactic doesn't materialize, we're going to be spending all this money on something that may not happen. Do we have a backup plan? Do we have a backup person that we can work with, you know, to deliver on Spaceport? Are there other fingers in pies and other commercial outlets apart from Virgin? I appreciate the fact that they are our main partner in this. I don't wish to see them fail. I hope that they are successful in their tests, and that you are right in your presumption that our first launch from Cornwall Airport Newquay will be in early 2022. But on the off chance, and I hope it doesn't happen, but on the off chance that things do go pear-shaped, what are our backup plans, please?
Thank you, Councillor Woods, for that question. Happy to answer. In terms of the wider business, I appreciate if I can't really comment on the wider business of Virgin News. I don't think that's appropriate in this particular forum. It's a massively challenging time for airlines and other businesses. We know that. We know there are massive challenges, and predicting what's the outturn of that is going to be massively difficult over the next few weeks. We are confident in Virgin Orbit and their ability to bring this to market and their commercial plan to do so. They are properly funded. They are progressing their plans for launch. They're been declared in the US as essential services, and therefore can continue with launch plans in California even when there was lockdown. So we are confident of that, but obviously, of course, the technology proven and bringing that to Cornwall is vital. I think there's two things from my point of view. I've just reiterated that we're not going to make a commitment to significant capital funds and the airport until that technology has been proven in the US. So I made that quite clear, and that's part of the risk management for the technology. And in terms of the system, Virgin Orbit are also going to be making significant commitments in terms of the support equipment required for the airport. So I think when we see the technology proven and a multi-million-pound commitment by Virgin Orbit to Cornwall, I think that will put us in the next stage where we will then commit jointly with them the works to the airport. So we're in massively challenging times. We're confident of that. The plan B, we are in discussions with other operators from the US and elsewhere in the world in terms of horizontal launch. I appreciate, obviously I can't really go into specifics because we're under NDA. They are looking at other probably future. So if there was an issue with Virgin Orbit, either technology or their business model in some way, which we don't predict, but if that was the case, then I think we'd be looking at a different program for development of the spaceport, in particular in relation to the commitment of Cornwall Council's capital to the spaceport. So both an officer level and reporting through Jeff Brown as portfolio holder, that will be my possible. We don't envisage that, but we have key dates through the program and development of the spaceport. If at those key dates, key things aren't in place, we won't be making the next steps, and we'll review the position at that stage through the process. So that's the only way we can progress and make progress going forward and maintain momentum while minimising the exposure to Cornwall Council in relation to the technology and other risks.
That's wonderful, Miles. I think you'll find the part of the recommendation for the granting of the funds was that no money would be spent until the technology has been tested, but I appreciate exactly where you're coming from on that, and thank you very much for a very concise answer. No one else is indicated, Mr. Chairman, at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. So if no one's got any further things to ask, we're just on to the date and time of next meeting, which is currently scheduled in for Thursday, the 24th of September.
Yes, that's right, Chairman, the 24th of September.
And that's absolutely fine. So unless anyone's got nothing else to say, I'm happy to close the meeting. That's fine. And I'd just like to add at the end, it's blatantly apparent how much of effect that the COVID situation has had on the airport. We've gone from a relatively optimistic position at the beginning of the year to a very, very grave position right now. And I just hope we can all work together and work through it and come out of the other side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.